welcome to LexTalk World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today we have Mr. Girish Viswanathan with us. He is Group Senior Legal Counsel, Landmark Group, Dubai. Girish is a self-motivated and committed legal professional with over 15 years of experience. He has worked in India with stock exchange listed companies like Wright Brothers Limited and Grindwell Norton Limited, a part of the French M&E Saint-Gobain Group. He moved to the City of Gold, Dubai in 2008 and worked as a part of the legal and compliance function with Damac Properties Limited. Later, he joined Landmark Group, one of the largest retail and hospitality corporation in the Middle East, Africa, and India. He's a happy-go-lucky kind of a guy who loves to travel and explore new places. He loves to engage in adventure sports, play basketball and cricket. He is a marathon runner and an avid traveler around the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Girish. We are pleased to have you with us today.
Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure.
Girish, to start with, I would request you if you can please brief us about your personal and professional background and your journey in the legal space so far.
Yeah, so I was born in down south in India. We got settled down in Mumbai when I was around 5 years old. My dad is a retired banker. I did my schooling in Mumbai. I'm from a place called Mulund in Mumbai. I started my career as a company secretary in India. Parallelly, I did my LLB, the Bachelor of Law degree, post which I went into Wright Brothers Limited, which is a listed company in India, as you said. So I started there my career as a management trainee. I continued there as a secretarial executive for 1 or 2 more years. Then I got a break into Grindwell Norton Limited. It was a French MNC company. I did some very interesting projects over there. Being a listed company, I was spearheading the various projects like subdivision of shares, issue of bonus shares, working closely with the stock exchange, the then SEBI authorities, and it was a great experience working over there for around 4 years in Saint-Gobain. Post which in 2008, after around 6 years of post-qualification experience, I got an offer from Damac Properties in Dubai. So I thought, why not take this challenge? Working international, being in the secretarial and the legal profession, I thought it would be quite a challenge during those days. So I thought, let me take this challenge and see how it goes. Once I came to Damac, I started understanding how the legal world is much broader and much wider than what it is in India. In India, we have been always focused with the local laws. Even if you work for a big MNC, generally it's a subsidiary of a MNC in India. So you generally work only with the local and state laws. Whereas if you come to a global economic hub, this is what I realized, like Dubai or Singapore, you start working for various jurisdictions. So in Damac, we started working towards the Middle East region. They also had some kind of connections in United Kingdom, back in India as well. So suddenly my foray, started expanding and started working in those kind of offshore holding companies, British Virgin Island, Cayman Island funds, and all those kind of various jurisdictions I started covering myself. Post that, I joined Landmark Group. It is one of the largest retail and hospitality conglomerate. Its presence is widespread across the Middle East, across to Southeast Asia, including Africa. I have been, again, in Damac, I was a part of the compliance and the legal team taking care of the regulatory compliances and the internal compliances which we need to adapt to. We used to purchase various plots, get it constructed and sell residential and commercial complex. So internal agreement compliances were required internally, which department had to do within what time limit. So I started with that, and we successfully rolled it out for 60 to 70 projects. Once I came into Landmark, I've been fortunate enough to wear various hats. Thanks to the head of the department, who is a multi-qualified person. He is also a multi-qualified financial profession as well as legal profession. Fortunate enough to work as a part of the secretarial team to start with, working on various companies across jurisdictions, Singapore, Malaysia, even some country. We had some holding structures in Netherlands, Luxembourg. We had some businesses in UK, which I was handling on the secretarial part of it, the company related matters, compliance matters. Post which I have also worked as a part of the tax planning team. As many of us might be aware, there is corporate tax in this part of the world, except in UAE and Bahrain, it's not there. But in other GCCs like Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar, there is corporate income tax. There is quite a lot of planning which goes through as to how the shareholders' wealth needs to be protected. So that has been one of I can say a very, very different kind of exposure coming from the profession where I am being a lawyer and a company secretary. I started working on tax professions, tax planning, various matters on tax planning, how to protect the shareholders well, how should the capital structure go on and stuff. And of late, for the last 1 year, I'm also working on the legal part. So basically, we have various kind of commercial agreements, lease agreements, intellectual property agreements in Landmark Group. Being a very large conglomerate, there's a lot of complex transactions which goes through. So I have been now as a part of the legal team as well. So if you look at my career in the last 15 years, I've been working as a part of secretarial function, the legal function, and the tax planning function. More to do with direct tax. Yeah.
What I really liked about your brief introduction is that you have explained what these organizations were doing. So being a lawyer or being a company secretary, it shows that you were completely into the core business and you were a part of that core triangle, and you gained some great knowledge about those companies, what these guys are doing, how the revenue generation works, because that's a very important factor, and aligning yourself with the goals, with the company's objectives really makes a lot of sense. And I think this is a change that this legal industry is trying to bring globally. I have been talking to a lot of lawyers globally these days. Rather, this morning I was talking to somebody in Zurich, and he said exactly the same thing, that as a lawyer, you are not supposed to be only a part of the legal team now, but you have to make decisions that are beneficial for the company. And you can only do that if you understand the business model and you are in the center of that triangle, that core zone. So really, really well said. And I really second you on that. Thank you so much for sharing that quick brief about yourself. Moving ahead, I would like to talk about business a little more, since this is where the talk is hovering right now. If I talk about business, what are those major aspects that you consider most important for any business?
The most important thing for any business, obviously, it's finally basically the mission has to be very, very clear. Like if I think about me getting into any company, getting recruited to a new company, it's very important to know what is the mission and vision of the company. Generally, retail industry, it's all about the market share. You need, once you have the market share, obviously the profits start coming in. You need not run behind money. It's all about what the customer needs. It's all about your marketing, what you do the marketing. Basically, I'm talking about the retail and the hospitality industry, the marketing, and rest of the things follow. Customer demand, customer requirements, keep your eyes and ears open, and cater to the customer's requirements, the ever-changing requirements of the customer, understand their customer behavior, and then serve them, whatever, if it's a service industry, serve them with what they like the best, or if it's a retail industry, you're selling any product, just give them what they like. And it is ever-changing environment, customer likes are changing day by day. So it is very, very important to be in touch with the market dynamics and adapt yourself to the changes and bring in those changes within the organization.
Thank you so much. The next question is about the young legal professionals or the law students who are still in the colleges, but have dreamt about having a flourished career in the legal space. What are those 3 best practices that you would like to recommend them to our young legal professionals, our followers who are viewing this video?
So the most critical thing for any legal professional, I would say that the moment you start your career, the most important thing is strive yourself to be a business-driven, business partner, solution-driven business partner. I'll put it that way. It is very easy for a lawyer to be a fence-sitter and say what are the do's and don'ts, have a conservative approach, and say that, okay, this is the thing, no, you can't do this. Instead, the change which I have seen and the way we have been pushed by our seniors is like you need to be along with the business. We are time and again emphasize that don't just look at any requirement from only a legal perspective or a compliance perspective. You need to be along with the business. At the end of the day, we all need to do a successful business. you need to support the business. So you need to think out of the box and come up with solutions which will actually help the business in growing. This is a very big change. If I see, on a perception change which has come up in this legal field, wherein when we started our career like 15 years back, things used to be pretty easy. I mean, you look at the law and say, okay, this is possible, this is not possible. But today the world is changing so fast. Legal is being looked at as a value-add department across the world. And it is very, very important to understand the business of the company, the mission and vision, as I said, the business, how the function works, how the supply chains work, how the entire business happens, right from the sourcing till the time it is sold to an end customer. Very, very important to, and it is my experience that once you understand the business, you really bring in value add to various kind of legal agreements which you do. And you tend to ask the right question to the business in order to protect the interest of the stakeholders.
Absolutely. And I think I completely in agreement with you on these three best practices that these young lawyers should be inculcating in their legal profession. Moving ahead, talking about the COVID-19 now, as we talked about this pandemic, the entire world is going through this crisis right now. What do you think? What is the new normal for the legal industry in your opinion?
What we have been realizing last 3-4 months is we always used to feel, you need to be at the office at 8:30 a.m. and start working and talking to people and stuff. But the biggest learning in the last 3 months for us has been like, you can work from home. There is this Microsoft Teams and various kind of softwares. Technology has played a very, very big part. And I would say our efficiencies on working from home has increased because even the work has increased multifold with the current unfortunate situation for the legal professionals. We have quickly realized that using technology, we can do meetings, we can talk to people face to face, and it has really helped. The efficiencies have increased. So I feel the new normal for the legal profession, maybe a lot of us might be asked to start working from home. This also helps the company to reduce its operational costs. They don't need an office for you, or rental and all those kind of stuff, various infrastructure to be provided for you. We have been liaising with so many people across various jurisdictions. We have been liaising with practicing lawyers and stuff. Everything sitting at home, it has quite become possible. I'm sure it was possible before also, but we never realized it. We never experienced it. So I think the new normal for all these back office support functions would be more to work from home, connect to people with technology. Even I think the travel will reduce a lot. People will start connecting to each other with various of these softwares, the team, the communications and stuff. Travel will be directly reduced. And I would say in our experience in the last 4 months, since first week of March, we have been working from home. And I will tell you, not even a little bit of a hiccup we got because of the presence of technology. And everything has been going as smooth as if we were sitting in the office. So technology is going to be the new normal, and I won't be surprised after legal professionals sitting at home and working efficiently and effectively.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of companies have already decided that they want to keep work from home as, as an option available forever for all of their employees, because they've tested that the teams have become more efficient. They are available for longer hours. People do not have to really spend a lot of time and money and energy commuting. And as you rightly said, this is also, a great benefit to the companies, because a lot of operational cost is getting saved and they don't really have to spend a lot of energy maintaining and managing all those things. So definitely I second you on this. Since, you started your career in India and then you moved to Dubai, I want to know, how did you adapt yourself to the culture of UAE?
Yeah, this is a very valid question, what you have been asking. I could see a sea change in the culture. Working in India, you always work with locals, Indian nationals of a particular state. Suddenly, when I jumped into Damac, Dubai, I was working with 17, 18 nationalities, multilinguistic, Arabic speaking, few Europeans, Spanish people, of course, Indians. Then you have other nationalities, our neighboring countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh. Dubai is one place where you can find all kinds of nationalities. You work around with these nationalities. it was very, very important for me once I moved from India to Dubai to understand the culture of these people, where they are coming from, what is their temperament. A lot of times you need to work alongside with few of them. A lot of times you need to get work done from few of them. You know, it was very, very important to understand their background, their culture. So the first immediate thing what I had to do is I had to develop an interpersonal relationship, interpersonal association with them, and try to understand where they are coming from, how is it going, and maybe you also need to change a little bit. Like, I'm generally said to be a very aggressive guy when it comes to work. So I had to also, you know, bring in some kind of a change in my behavior, wherein, you know, I had to be a little subtle at sometimes. I have to give the motivational, you know, push to them and get the things done. So that has been a very, very big learning for me in my career. And I seriously feel, you know, professions like professionals like legal, generally, unless we go out of the country and see all this, sense this, you know, you will not really understand, you know, how it works. That is the other part. Then you start working with a lot of your connections, your associates in Europe. Europe works in a very, very structured manner. Then you need to adapt yourself when you deal with them. You need to call strictly during office timings at the time given, not like the typical approach which we have where you can just take the phone and call your colleagues and stuff. So that was again a learning for me. So yeah, it has been a very, very big learning, understanding the people around you, where they are coming from, understand this psyche and work towards it and get your job done. It was challenging, I will say, for the first 1 year. But afterwards, once you start understanding the pulse of the various nationalities, the multilinguistic culture they come from, it becomes pretty easy. And, you know, like even now, if we meet someone from a new nationality, we just try to tell it's your experience, basically, at the end of the day. When you deal with like 15, 16 people from various nationalities, you start adapting. And you also need to change yourself a little bit for getting your work done.
This is a 360-degree shift, you know, working in India, working with people who look like you, speak like you, really makes a difference. And when you work with multinationality people coming from different nations, different jurisdictions in your in legal space, if I talk about, then you have to, you know, it really takes time for you to adapt and mingle around. Yeah, that makes sense. Moving ahead, what do you think are the major differences on the work front when we compare the job, what a legal professional does in India vis-a-vis internationally?
Yeah. If you look at it from the work front, basically whatever my experience has been in India, because I have not worked for a Indian multinational company having presence around the world. So my exposure has been to Indian companies and Indian and foreign MNCs having an office in India. So that way in India, it was all about the local and the state laws which we are working in. After coming to this part of the world, let it be Damac or Landmark Group, at least the holding structure somewhat works in the same fashion. And I started getting exposed to these Caribbean offshore jurisdictions like British Virgin Island, Cayman Island, and we have worked on a lot of structures. You know, because you do business in multi-jurisdiction, then you need to plan your structuring. And you need to see the good tax-free jurisdictions where you can actually, you know, hold your wealth, protect your wealth. It's more to do with the tax planning, basically, and how to basically secure the wealth of the stakeholders. And the biggest work learning after coming here is like, I can you know, very proudly say I have worked for companies relating to countries across like 20 countries across after coming to Dubai. Let it be Europe or let it be other Middle East countries, let it be US, we are also the Caribbean. So being a global economic hub, Dubai is, legal professionals really get exposed to the various compliance and company related matters across jurisdictions. You know, and I feel I'm very fortunate enough to be a part of this. And a lot of times I get a confidence like, you know, now I can go to Europe or somewhere and I can actually start working once you start understanding how the things work over there, the laws, the compliance and all the stuff. So it has been really a splendid exposure. And of late we have been working also in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. That again is more closer to India. The laws are more closer to India. So you are now connected with a country like India as well. So That way, it has been a splendid, wide exposure across the globe.
I'm sure, and this must be exciting too, working with different nations, people from different nations, companies from different nations. This must be very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that great insight. Now, I'd like to move ahead, and we have a couple of more questions that we want to cover. If I talk about, since you have been closely associated with tax functions, can you explain a bit about it, please?
Yeah. So as I said, I mean, I was very fortunate because my head of department, he has been responsible for the direct tax planning in Landmark Group, and once I started working with him very closely, I started understanding how close tax planning is to structuring. So the structuring company's business. So just to give you an example, like, when we plan to enter into a Malaysia or Indonesia or any other country, we used to do a business plan, how the capital has to move around, where are your stakeholders sitting, which country, from there the capital needs to move, what is the best way, the dividends, or is it the royalty route, or is it the interest from shareholders loan, the money needs to flow back, the most tax efficient. So you start looking at what is the corporate income tax in that part of the world, what is the withholding tax impact on various transactions. So it all starts from there, and I started understanding the nexus between a secretarial, legal, and a tax function. It was actually a very big realization for me, and this exposure has brought in such a kind of a value add. I mean, you do a value add, when you even select a jurisdiction to hold your business, or obviously the operations, the business will come and say that we need to start operating in X country. Then the whole planning starts. So we take into account the various legal aspects, how the legal system work in that jurisdiction. And then we start working out the holding structure pattern, how the company should be held over there, which is the most tax efficient way to hold. And as I said, how can the money flow back to the shareholders through the legal channel? Should it be a dividend route, or should it be, from an interest route by giving loans, or should it be through the IP route as a royalty payment? We start working on all these kind of most tax efficient structuring solution, and then come up with a solution which protects and which enhances the wealth of the shareholders in a very, very legitimate and a legal way. So having had this experience, I suddenly started feeling tax planning, direct tax is so much closely related to the secretarial and the legal and the structuring function. And legally, obviously, once you start again doing those agreements for those respective jurisdiction, you start understanding the trail, the transaction better. And obviously, you bring in some kind of a value add with various kind of clauses which come into play. So I was in order to protect the stake of the stakeholders. Yeah.
Okay, this brings me to another question. Since you talked about the companies and helping them out with the right decisions, I also want to know how far it is important for a legal professional to understand the business cycle of their organization to perform their duties.
Yeah. So it is very, very important to understand the business cycle. As I earlier said, one has to start with the vision and mission, understand what is the vision and mission. I think induction programs of the companies are very, very important. I will give you an example in myself. When I was a very young professional with 3 to 4 years post-qualification, I went into the Saint-Gobain Group company. And in one of my yearly review, I said to them, okay, we have all these Saint-Gobain glass and all these big companies. We hear it's like 100% automated manufacturing concern and stuff. But we, being sitting in corporate office, we are not knowing what is happening over there. And I will tell you that then they had put up a program for me to visit the various manufacturing units in India. Saint-Gobain had some 5 to 6 units in various places. There was a proper program which was conducted where they explained to us the business, how the raw materials are put in, how the final glass comes out, the various technology which are being used, automations which are being used, and few other businesses as well I had been to in Bangalore and stuff. Once you have the complete idea of the complete activity, the business which the company does right from the start, like if it's a manufacturing company, like from the sourcing of raw material till the end product is sold to a distributor, or if it is a retail industry, right from the start of sourcing the product and then selling it to an end customer. Once you know this business cycle, I will tell you, it really helps you in various kind of legal agreements, because you get a lot of these commercial agreements. You get sourcing agreements, then you get some distribution agreements, then you start getting some service agreements. So once you understand the business cycle, and when an agreement comes to you suddenly, you tend to ask the right question to the business to do justice to that agreement, and you understand, okay, this agreement is a part of which cycle, where is the cycle for which this agreement is being done. So once you understand the business cycle, then it becomes very easy for you to ask the right questions and serve the agreement better, to do full justice to the agreement. Because a lot of times what happens is you give your feedback to the business, and the business comes back that, no, we want you to cover this angle, that angle. In this case, you become proactive and ask the right questions to the businesses. So the business cycle, I feel, is very, very important for any profession. Like the finance profession, even the legal professional should be understanding the complete business cycle, so that they can do justice to the agreements in hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. And I think when we initiated the conversation, we talked about that this is a new shift, a new regime that legal profession has brought into, and a lot of legal professionals these days wants to be a part of that core group and wants to have every piece of information about the company, which is important for them to perform their duties.
Right.
Moving ahead, and I think this would be the last question for the day. What would be your final words to the young legal professionals who are in the very early stage of their careers right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I know we finished our legal profession 15, 16 years back. I would always urge all the legal professionals to be technology savvy. We are going towards the age of artificial intelligence, and a lot of companies, most part in the West, and I feel in India is also, they are getting into technology driven. So it is very, very important, to be a very good lawyer, very good company secretary, or a very good tax profession. But at the end of the day, I feel technology also plays a major role. And in my experience, we have done some automated projects in compliance, and we have done some automated project in my previous companies on document management control. Understanding of technology and understanding how the business and the department works, even the flow in your department, how it works, is very, very important for young professionals. I would ask them to be very IT savvy and obviously good in your legal profession. And when you start your career, generally people will try to tell you that legal is a back office support function and stuff. Don't think like that. Go for it. Go to your HR, talk to them and tell them, I would like to understand the business, how the business works. And that would really, really help you in doing justice to the legal work which is in your hand. Let it be for, for various commercial agreements. Let it be for choosing the right jurisdiction to structure your business. It's very, very important to understand the business. And I wish all the youngsters, it's a great profession to be in. And the way it is gaining recognition in the last 10 to 12 years, we are being looked at as a part of the business. And we no longer be a back office support function, which is very, very good for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing those great insights with the young legal professionals. And I'd like to thank you a lot for sharing all that information which is very, very, very helpful for legal professionals. We look forward to having chat with you again in the future on some other trending topics. For our viewers, if you like this interview, please share and like this video. Also share it with your colleagues, your friends who might be looking for such information. You can also follow our YouTube channel, ClickAway Creators, to have more insights coming from the legal professionals from around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.